what we're talking about here.
Similar concept.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so we're talking about things like environmental exposure.
Yes.
That you know, can definitely, you know, influence the microbiome and definitely the ratios. And so you are absolutely right. You know, and I think that was a discussion, you know, going around. You know, of course, you always hear these arguments of you know, well, people are using hand sanitizer too much, or they're washing their hands too much. You know, we're wiping out organisms that you know, could be beneficial. And you know, I'm going, well, I guess that's one take on it. Yes.
Don't you think that the industrial farming, like you were talking about, is got something to do with that beehive colony collapse from all the sprays and stuff that they put on orchards and crops and stuff, and then the bees go out there and then that's how come they're dying off?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you know, in an environment like that, you know, when you have all these exposures, you know, what are you bringing home? You know, and definitely, I mean, how is it impacting you? Yeah. You know, how does it impact you when you live in the middle of a walnut orchard and they've been spraying?
Yep.
You know, and you know, it just gives you pause. You know, you start going, wow, you know, when we go back to our text today, and in our minds we're actually to visualize in Genesis, it's outlined that we have all of these plants and trees and flowers and fruit and everything that's available to us. And then we look outside and we go, wow, we've got all these beautiful orchards, we've got all this stuff, you know, but we've got variables, and we've got all these herbicides, all these pesticides, you know, not to mention the whole GMO discussion, and it's real easy to become very, very much, you know, distraught about what am I going to do, you know, and how is it that I can implement the first diet in my life, when I go and I'm buying products that have been you know, treated or potentially exposed to all these herbicides and pesticides. And I will just tell you, and you know, Dr. Meyer and I, you know, we had a discussion, you know, well, when we first started this class, this was definitely a point of discussion. You know, I think that we've got to do the best we can. And and personally, I think that's why it's just awesome to be able to ask a blessing on the food before I eat it. Yeah. Because if I start getting so caught up in all of these thought processes, I'm gonna literally you know, need some professional help myself. You know, and I see folks driving themselves, you know, and get so caught up in all of this that it becomes so overwhelming, and it becomes a very oppressive weight. And I got to tell you, their smiling muscles quit working, and finding their smiling muscles again. I think oftentimes that picture of complete health, that spiritual component, I think it just reinforces the absolute necessity of that. Tony?
I was just going to say they also radiate some foods.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, if you know, the herbicides and pesticides don't scare you enough, maybe a little radiation will.
And that's because they want to keep like salmonella poisoning and other things down.
Right. Right.
Spiders.
And
spiders. Banana spiders.
Right, and so I think it really comes down to, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we each had a garden?
Yes.
And we actually knew exactly what was planted, and you know, we just are you know, going back more toward that original plan that God gave us. So. Yeah, so the firmicutes and bacteroides, you know, those ratios, and so when we hit that a little bit later, you're gonna go, aha. So age-related change, well, you know, it's, we haven't quite figured out how to get younger yet, right? We maybe feel younger, but it's amazing when we're referencing, when looking at that microbiome, and we start seeing the, yeah, you know, the ratios are different. It's not stable over the life of an individual. It is natural that the diet of elderly individuals change for many reasons, including loss of sensation of taste and smell. You know, and I think, you know, those of you that are going, you know what, yeah, you know, maybe I'm noticing some changes and things don't smell quite as good. You know, especially folks that smoke. You know, that's always a complaint. They're going, yeah, I really don't, you know, they don't even notice. They can't smell much. And definitely affects their ability to taste. Tooth loss. Well, you know, and if we had our dentist here, we'd have a good discussion there. Because when somebody does not have their dentition, are they going to be able to eat an apple? Are they going to be able to eat a chunk of celery? You know, or some carrots and things like that. And so we just start formulating that idea that, wow, you know, the dentition's really important. Chewing difficulties, or due to certain diseases that result in the exclusion of certain components from the diet. They referenced a few: cholesterol, sugar, salt. Some of these age-related microbiota composition changes may therefore be attributable to diet. Well, you know, to me that just well, of course. You know, I'm not able to eat, you know, fruits and vegetables. Definitely going to have an impact on my microbiome. But now the question becomes, what? That's where it's kind of fun. The composition of the intestinal microbiota may also vary in elderly subjects independently of diet because of a number of psychological and immunological factors, such as reduced functionality of the immune system. And yeah, you know, it's kind of like my, you know, when I'm talking to my dad in Nebraska, and he goes, "Rob, just don't get old."
There we go.
Go on. Pretty simple.
Simple.
You know, but you know, as he's you know, kind of leading the way, so to speak, and finding out in his late 70s that, yeah, you know, he's developed a lot of taste preferences that, you know, when Margot and I go out and visit, we're kind of shaking our head going, oh boy, you know. And this last time we were there, I was able to jump in because he loves to get up. Part of the enjoyment while we're there, he loves to get up and make breakfast. And so, you know, and that's kind of fun. You know, you come in the house and here's breakfast already going. But one thing that always happens, you know, he's got this ability to use a salt shaker. It's a wonderful ability. I mean, he has perfected that ability. And I got in there early enough to help him realize that, you know, there's already salt added to those hash browns. We don't need to add more. Because the last time we were there, you know, I was like, oh my goodness. You know, it's like you just get so much salt. Well, you know, my dad's cultivating that taste. So, you know, that's not a good thing. And so you can kind of see that, yeah, all these things, these taste preferences, can definitely have that you know, a potential negative fallout. So it has been shown that the microbiota associated with elderly individuals is characterized by a reduced abundance of Ruminococcus and Zibuladius species, and a diminished abundance of several butyrate producers. While the number of, we're just going to call it E. coli because that's, everybody's familiar with that, is increased compared with younger controls. So now we're starting to get a picture here of, wow, so now all of a sudden an elderly individual, we have more E. coli and less of some of these other beneficial species compared with younger folks. So now we're starting to see that shift, that dysbiosis, okay? Also known as chaos, right?
Is that automatically, or does that have to do partially with diet and lifestyle?
And that's precisely why we're having this discussion, Ann. I love it. Because as we recognize that, you know what, I'm going to be older tomorrow than I am today. Okay? Next year, yep, I may be feeling younger, but the numbers aren't going to be associated with that. But this comes right back to the ability you and I have of ensuring that we can maintain a microbiome balance by the food choices that we're making. So it's like with my dad, getting him to not use his salt shaker muscles as much. You know, and for each one of us, just making sure that, you know, we do not want to create dysbiosis by not eating as many fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And so as we age, you know, and I kind of pick on my dad, he should be here to defend himself, I suppose, but you know, I think he's just a classic example. He developed this love of, what are they, Ensures. When he was in the hospital, they said, you know, have some Ensures. He loved the chocolate ones, sticks them in the freezer. Okay, and he's going, wow, I love that chocolate Ensure. Ensure's good for you, right? Okay. So all of a sudden, you know, his blood sugars are spiking, all this stuff, but he still has developed and cultivated that taste. Now we've got to get him back on the right pathway. Well, he's going to fall into this category because his microbiome, I should have said that to him while I was there, just to get a picture of the look on his face, like, what are you talking about, Rob? But you know that's going to mess up and mess with his microbiome ratios. Yes, Doc?
Yeah, sometimes what happens as the years go by is they lose their taste.
Mm-hmm.
And if they lose their taste or their smell, then it's harder for them to want to eat. And so if they don't have heart problems, sometimes one of the best, or the easiest ways I should say, maybe not the best way, but sometimes some of the easiest ways for us to encourage patients, especially in the acute care setting where they're really sick, to eat more is to give them a little saltier food.
Right.
And so I don't know if his taste or his smell is failing as the years go by, and sometimes that can be an early sign of memory issues, Alzheimer's, and so forth, that can be addressed through all your expertise and talk and so forth.
Yeah, exactly, and that's, you know, and that is, it's really sad, you know, for anybody, you know, to see their parents declining and you know, and definitely calling into question some of the you know, choices that are made. But you're right, yeah, and I think that may be part of it. You know, he's dumping more salt on just to kind of be able to taste something.
And that feed on or ferment probiotics.
Uh-huh.
The word ferment needs some explaining. Is that just the breaking down of those molecules?
Yeah, you know, and in this class we've referenced fermentation in a negative connotation,
Yeah.
in the fact that if we have food that's actually breaking down, fermenting, putrefying in our GI tract, that's a definite negative. But fermenting can also be a process of just that breaking down and actually being able to, then our body being able to utilize you know, and digest. So the fermentation process is also very important to the microbiome balance.
So what's the difference between ferment and putrefy?
There you go. See, now, if I'm trying to use the word putrefy, it'd be really hard to find a positive application for that. Whereas fermentation, we can start wrapping our mind around the fact that, yeah, this is a process that's actually occurring naturally and can be associated with some of the organisms in our GI tract, and we can actually view that as a positive part of a chemical you know, process. Yeah. Question?
Yeah, well, I have a statement
Uh-huh.
about taste. It's like, I've been coming here for about 3 or 4 months now, and the changes in my diet have got me tasting food. One of the things I had to do was completely eliminate salt,
Uh-huh.
and now I absolutely taste the carrots in the soup. I
Nice.
absolutely taste the celery. I mean, each bite has all of those unique flavors.
Nice.
And and I'm going to be 70-something or other here in summer.
70-something or other. I like that. I like that. Well, like I said earlier, be careful, you're getting healthy on us.
Well, I said so, my
And I
taste will
love
stay.
that. Because I think that brings up that point that we are actually able to cultivate and change taste preference. You know, we can get to the point where, you know, those chocolate Ensures, you know, pulled out of the freezer are just so incredibly sweet that we're just kind of turned off. And we start looking at other options like fruit because it's just so much more satisfying. Yes.
So we have a natural fermentation that takes place, a process that takes place in our intestine.
In our GI tract.
So what about foods like kimchi or some of these drinks that are partially fermented or fermented,
Mm-hmm.
and we're drinking those? Is that going to have a negative?
And I don't know that I can speak to that specifically through this study.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be the guy that stands up and say, let's find balance.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not overdo on that. You know, and very, very much we've got to recognize that fermentation process definitely is necessary, even to the point where it can help create more short-chain fatty acids. That's kind of why I threw that up there, so that we can start wrapping our mind around that, because we already know the short-chain fatty acids are really important. You know, and actually can even promote, you know, positive changes in the pH of our GI tract. So, yes.
The question of like you eat that or you eat probiotics, whether it lives through the stomach acid is questionable. So I'm thinking the benefit of the fiber, it's not made until it gets down there, so it's
Right.
it's in its right state.
Right, and you're spot on. That's kind of why I went through that esophagus, you know, the stomach. I mean, you literally, and it's referenced here, and you can kind of read through that. You can actually see where the number of microorganisms are going to be reduced significantly in the stomach part of our GI tract. And then, you know, just in the small intestine, they give you an estimate. Then the colon, even a larger, you know, number. And you start going, oh, wow. Okay, so I start, you know, seeing how this makes sense. And so those indigestible fibers make it all the way down to my colon. Now they have the right organisms, as long as we have the right ratios, to start breaking those down and providing some positives for our bodies and overall health.
So
I mean, it's complex, but boy, it's really simple.
So in eating the process, there's a stage and something takes place in each one of those stages through our whole system.
Exactly, and the complexity is just completely like, wow. I mean, you cannot, when you get done looking at this handout today, if you're not in awe, I want you to come talk to me, because something's wrong. I mean, it is just so incredible. The butyrates, we talked about, you know, earlier, but I wanted to reinforce so now everybody goes, aha! Butyrates, okay, are important as food for the cell lining on of our colons. Without butyrates for energy, colon cells undergo autophagia, or self-digestion. Okay, well, you can just imagine what's happening in our colon if it's digesting itself. We're going to end up in big trouble, right? And then the cells die. Short-chain fatty acids, which include butyrate, are produced by beneficial colonic bacteria, or bacteria known as probiotics. Okay, so again, that you know, part of our immune system that feed on or ferment the prebiotics. So that's kind of where, again, that fermentation process can take those prebiotics and help convert and create something positive there, which are plant products that contain adequate amounts of dietary fiber. These short-chain fatty acid benefits the colonocytes by increasing energy production and cell proliferation, and may even protect from colon cancer. So now we're sitting here going, wow. So the take-home is, I'm eating fruits, I'm eating vegetables, I'm eating whole grains, I'm getting these fibers, even these indigestible fibers, into my GI tract. The microbiome starts breaking all this down, fermenting, converting into a positive, usable source. And the ratio of firmicutes over the Bacteroides, that FB ratio, is one of the parameters known to change throughout the lifespan. The ratio is lower in the first years of life, increased in adulthood, and again decreases during old age. And I'll just touch briefly on this, that ratio, the ratio of firmicutes. Okay, so all of a sudden we've got more of the firmicutes than the Bacteroides, is higher in obese than in lean humans. Pretty fascinating stuff when they start looking at, we can do a organism ratio, look at the ratios and consider it as a useful biomarker of obesity. And I think that we're going to be able to say that when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to a variety of other health concerns. And so it starts to give us just a sneak preview of just how absolutely significant our GI tract microbiome is in the maintenance of our overall health. Pretty exciting stuff. So give it some sink time, let it sink in. I've got Doc Meyer going to be leading out next week, and I think I'm back the week after, unless I get somebody else recruited. But it's just really important. I want you to let this sink in, make sense, take this handout home, just kind of read through it, don't get overwhelmed. But if it whets your appetite for biochemistry, that's great. The world needs more biochemists, right? All right, well, let's close with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we've had together today as we've studied the microbiome and just seen a glimpse of the incredible complexity in how you created us. We ask for you to be with each individual as we leave this place, bring us all back again safely next week. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a wonderful